What's up? Welcome to day 1 of EconomicsMaxxing. And I think today I'm going to try to go over the balance of payments, whatever that means. I remember I saw this term on a WSO blog post. Let me see if I can find it. But it was about trying to build a mental model of how to look at news and also economic news especially. So I think I'm gonna try to find this thing again. Let's see, my bookmarks maybe. Yeah, this one right here. Building a macro framework. Okay. Necessarily create an equal and opposite impact on other parts, Japan or Eurozone. Business cycle. Nice. Yeah, what was ISLM again? I forgot. Economics. Investment saving, liquidity preference, money supply. Okay. Okay. Krugman. Paul Krugman. Okay, so Krugman, building macro framework. Let's read through these, see how these guys think about it. Okay. So. Oh my god. Okay, let's see. Monetary/banking/financial assistance functions from a high level, where the goal is incentives and motivations of the major players, how they drives capital flows across geographies and asset classes. Banks, GSIBs. Financial/economic conditions, how their behavior reflexively causes changes in financial conditions. Cycles, peaks, troughs in the real economy. The US during the What does he mean by the real economy? Labor, capital, land, entrepreneurship. Okay, I guess these are financial markets. Yeah. Okay. It's difficult trying to be a jack of all trades. I tend to stay away from the nitty-gritty details of any singular asset or asset class. So for me, it shows for the reason I discussed above. Nations, central bank operations, destruction, you name it. Okay. So equities. Truck bond issuance, though. Futures, repo, FX swaps. Fine tends to give you a pretty good handle on what is generally going on. Okay, then make it based on these. EM currencies. Back from US. Tend to lead poor economic conditions and develop conflicts by several months. Furthermore, it's often a negative signal for risk assets and financial markets. Real terms are being negotiated. Okay. Wow, this is crazy. That cascades into dealers reevaluating risk positions across the globe, which leads to reflective tightening of financial conditions. calculations. No, this is really long. Okay. Charge they are based on the activities of large bankers / dealers. Okay, man. The screen is not capturing it. Okay. Alright, there we go. Now it's showing up on the screen. Okay. Since 08 meeting. 2021, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I am currently working on that logic for the page switch now. I have I'm still running through like errors, but I'm working. I'm almost there. I think I'm gonna get it. I just have to keep playing around a bit more. But yeah, I was able to see the new like the graphs on the updated branch. So it's just a matter of me working out the logic now for calculating those intervals, which I'm almost there. But yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. You know what? That might be helpful. I'll pull those new changes in. Yeah.
We can summarize these issues. It's a super quick, very high level overview. How do you generally think about markets? Okay, interesting. It's a PowerPoint. The next set paper hero for the industry.
Yeah, I had to create my own environment. I don't know if it's on this already.
Okay, yeah, it seems like there's some pretty good stuff here, actually.
Okay.
Banks or zeros. Okay, I'm gonna bookmark this. Sultan Postar.
It's like SOURC. Yeah. There.
Okay. So I do have the Ray Dalio book. Of economies, local economy, national. Quartz, free resources, an economy. Reviewed by Christopher Hayes. Okay. Consumption, trade to allocate resources. I think that's the biggest thing. Okay.
Wait, Musa, are you on the dev box, or are you doing, or are your containers like on your Mac? Or
Search should find. Okay.
oh, they're running. Okay. Okay.
Hierarchy, man, the hierarchy, guys. Dealer ecosystem. Respective policy application. Small and big banks, central banks, dealer banks. Banks. Money funds. Core money claims. Core currency deposits. T-bills, treasury notes, private assets, private bills. CDs, CPs. Yeah, this is a lot. Okay, things create money and don't understand yourself. Okay. What the hell is this? Units. Becoming more and more leverage and bonds becoming more as collateral. CIOs meet future promises, themes, maturity and liquidity transformation. I should say. References. Okay. So I think this is where I should start maybe taking some notes about about building the macroeconomic framework. Let's take a look here. This creates economic reports. Economic framework document. Title. My economic building a economic foundation. Author Ryan Zhang. Okay. See, true. Alright. So I guess just starting off, what do I think of as an economy? Maybe what my definition of an economy is. So let's say definition of economy. So maybe I could say that an economy is really an abstract concept that combines the ideas of production, consumption, and labor. Maybe something along those lines. Economies can be national, international, local, or at the state level. Yeah, I guess there are just really three main parts of an economy, right? So you have the consumption of goods and services, the production of goods and services, and the labor that is used. The labor and maybe the labor and goods, which I guess are the labor and resources used to produce the goods and services. And maybe the people who are also purchasing goods and services, right? So maybe I could say so. I think an economy is, I think there are lots of ways to think about how an economy functions, and maybe there is no right or wrong answer here. I think at the simple way to think about it is that an economy is the collection of the following So you have consumption, of services to production of goods/services and labor. So maybe those are the main things that we should really think about here when we think about an economy. And when you think about it, the economy today is kind of limited to what exists within the entire world. It's kind of enclosed in Earth. Yeah, the economy. Economies exist in the global, national, states, local levels. And So when you think about looking in the past, maybe the global economy was, I think today is currently outputting maybe 100 trillion. In 2022, the global economy outputted had an output of 100 trillion plus dollars. Looking to the future, this number is going to likely only going to increase. Yeah, when I kind of look to the future, I mean, I hope that maybe the global human civilization is able to improve the quality of life and is able to grow, improve, and innovate with new technologies. And so the economy of the entire world is surely going to increase, maybe with times of conflict and war, maybe natural disasters. The global economy might face some declines, but I think 9 times out of 10, humans probably going to be better off in the future. But there's definitely a lot of risks that are involved here. I mean, global warming is definitely a big one. Now you have nuclear weapons that can end the world as we know it at any time. So these are big things that could really face, put the trajectory of growth at risk. Yeah, it's interesting to think about. I haven't really just sat down and thought about all this stuff. 2022. Right, so I remember in these threads, and they were talking about Ray Dalio's How the Economic Machine Works. And I watched that video once or twice. Don't fully remember all the details. But, oh man. I think maybe the main ideas from those videos is that usually economies are driven by cycles, and these cycles come from both the availability of debts and credit. And I think that's probably the biggest, or not myself, but I think that's what the authors and maybe some practitioners think are the biggest drivers of how economies work. Just the ability to lend money, to create money, to print money, and how that process fuels economic expansion, meaning more production, more consumption. And within that, I believe there's also the ideas of long-term debt cycles and short-term debt cycles. Long-term debt cycles usually involve really big, not just economic changes, but geopolitical changes. So I think maybe some of the long-term debt cycles that I know of, that also probably a lot of people have heard of, are the Great Depression and I believe the 1930s and global financial crisis in 2007, 2008. So these are really bad economic times and cause a lot of pain for people in the countries in which long-term debt cycles are kind of crashing down, and also to the entire global economy. Now, I think the short-term debt cycles, it just, we might be going through one right now where post-financial crisis, we see decline in interest rates, promotes lending activity, promotes economic growth. And then COVID happened, so then that's a period when no one was really spending anything. People were staying indoors. Our economy was at a standstill. We had declining real GDP, earnings across companies, publicly traded and privately held, were all declining. And so the government decided to inject a lot of money within our system. There's stimulus payments, maybe quantitative easing by the Fed to inject money through open market operations. I think those two are related to each other, so they do that by just buying up government bonds, and that is able to inject money to bondholders. So bondholders, I think, are probably going to be different banks, lending institutions within the U.S., internationally, possibly some companies, corporations that are also holding government bonds. So the Federal Reserve is going into the money system and injecting money that way. And this has kind of led to just a huge economic expansion within the past 2 years, I guess in the next 2 years after the COVID pandemic. And so then you see a lot of people spending like crazy with their stimulus payments, growth in earnings across companies within the S&P all rose. Lots of companies, especially tech companies, had their valuations rise like 2-3 times. And so that was a big economic expansion. And then I think maybe somewhere around 2022, late 2022, early 2023, you saw kind of this small bubble burst, and interest rates, inflation increased 9%. I think year over year. I'm not too sure of the exact numbers, but it was really high. Fed started tightening interest rates. Asset prices declined. Asset future valuations declined. And then you also saw a slowdown in economic expansion. So these were all, I guess you could say, part of a short-term debt cycle where you have these periods of growth and decline, and these are all really impacted by the monetary and fiscal policies by the government. Right. So maybe that's just an outlook of what's been going on just in the US, but within the global view, I mean, there's a lot to think about here. World history, global history. That's such a big, I guess you could say, topic. I mean, what world history probably goes back maybe 3,000, 4,000 years. And I think the idea of money is probably something that's existed for a while now. So yeah, if you really want to build, I guess if I really want to build a coherent macro framework, it starts at the beginning of maybe human civilization. So there's a lot to think about there. I'm not too sure if I'll ever get to that point where I fully understand everything, but this could be an interesting start. Okay. So breaking it down, who participates in the economy? I think this is a good question to ask, actually. So when we think about an economy and we think about how the world operates, who's actually participating here? So we have governments. You have national, state, local, US, United States, China, Germany, Japan. All of these governments are probably one of the most important participants in any type of economy. They have power over both monetary and fiscal policy, which can really dictate the direction in which economies are going to. And then we have corporations. Okay. So corporations. We also have households. Corporations, I'm thinking of, these are people, or I guess entities that, so they employ labor, provide goods and services, businesses, so consume goods and services. These also provide labor. Does our government really consume goods and services? I guess you could say they do. I feel like this is probably how this works, right? So you have your government, your corporations and businesses, and your households. So these are your people. These are policymakers. Yeah, maybe these are also, so you could break it down to 3 different categories: governments, corporations, and households. Another way of thinking about this is policymakers, businesses, and people. So who participates, right? So if you think about who participates in Governments, they probably provide goods and services. Policymakers, corporations, they also provide goods and services. They also consume goods and services as well. Okay, so who participates in the economy? Let's say, what are the biggest economies? So we have number one, I think you have the US, US, to China, maybe 3, it's like UK, 4 India. I don't know exactly. How many countries are there in the world? What are the economic regions of the world? Right. Countries are there in the world? What are the biggest economies? How many countries are there in the world? And what are the economic regions of the world? Yeah, so I guess these are all interesting questions to ask. I don't have the answer to. This is definitely interesting to think about. And what's some other questions I want to ask? How does the economic machine work? How do long-term debt cycles and short-term debt cycles work? Right? Alright, another question is, how does money flow around the world? Maybe so. How does the economic machine work? How does money flow around the world? What are the impacts of demographics on economies? Right? I think there are a lot of different ways. Okay. So, how do each of the participants in the economies affect the economy? Right. How does the European Union work? That's actually something I have no idea. Right? How does trade work? How does NATO work? Right. These are actually all questions. All right. What is the IMF and World Bank? What is the United Nations? Yeah, these are all important questions that I feel like they seem kind of obvious, but deep down, I really don't understand exactly what they actually do. Okay. Yeah, something I do want to think about because it is kind of fresh on my mind. We did have some speakers come to my school to talk about the US budget deficit. And so this is something I kind of want to think about here with that kind of fresh in my mind. They gave a little primer on how governments are able to fund and spend. And I think the way a government really makes money is through taxes, right? And so there's two different types of taxes to think about in the US economy, at least. So I think there's payroll tax, and then there's also income tax. And I actually had no idea about this. So income tax is taxed on any type of income that you make. So again, income is a pretty toughly defined. It's a really abstract concept. It feels like it's something simple to think about from a really high level of perspective, but I think one of my professors had a class talking about how income is defined, and it really does seem kind of complex if you really try to dig deeper into what this idea really means. I'm not too sure if it's important really to fully try to understand from the perspective of, let's say, an asset manager, which is what I hope to do. But maybe if I have some time, I'll do some thinking about it. So let's talk about governments then. So governments are one of the most are an essential part to the global, to every parts of the economy. Sovereign governments so what even is a government, right? Is it just, I guess it's an institution that governs or makes policies for an entire group of people? I think of a government as a single collection of institutions that make policies, provide services, and enforce. Enforce policies and provide services to a group of people. Governments are an essential part to every part of the economy. I think of a government as a collection of institutions that make and enforce policies, while providing services to a group of people. So maybe this is important, while providing services to a group of people, right? services to a group of people. Right. Providing services to a group of people. So, say sovereign. How governments make money. So governments make money by taxing the people they serve. Governments make the most of their money by taxing the people they serve. There are different types of taxes that a government might levy. So I know there's income tax. So there's payroll tax. There's also sales tax, which could be a type of payroll tax. Payroll tax, sales tax, and value added tax. I'm not too sure what that is actually. So value added tax and import tax. I feel like these are probably. I wonder if ChatGPT knows. ChatGPT probably knows. What are the types of taxes a government levies? Oh, corporate tax. Tariffs. Oh, right, corporate tax. So, corporate tax, payroll tax, sales tax, value, import tax. What's that others? Property tax. What's U.S. government revenue? For the U.S. government are individual and corporate taxes. They're dedicated to funding Social Security and Medicare. Used to fund a variety of goods, programs, and services to support the American public. Uses of government-owned land building, the sale of natural resources, various usage and licensing fees. How does the Chinese tax system? What is the U.S. Treasury? China Treasury Department. It's a Constitution Department. China Ministry of Finance. Treasury policies, maybe? Yeah, let's just see according county standards of Chinese mainland. People. About us, ministers, main functions. Analyzing and forecasting macroeconomic situation, participating in macroeconomic policy making, providing advice on utilizing fiscal and taxation policies to realize. Okay. Managing government non-tax revenues, governmental funds, pilot undertaking, supervise. Policies, maybe. Oh, wait, yeah, this is what I just saw. What's this? Features, data. So, this is Arling RR Nian. Okay. By currency of denomination. International cooperation. What is NDB, President? National Development Bank. Financial China France joint fact sheets. So let's take a look at the World Bank. World Bank Group. I think global GDP, is it measured by the World Bank or by World Bank open data? Oh shoot. It's in every area of major economic developments. What about IMF and its International Monetary Fund? Commodity prices, IMF researchers. Chart of the week. World Economic Outlook updates. How many countries in the world? Well, there's also United Nations actually. We could take a look at that. Intergovernmental. Purpose is to maintain international peace, security, develop friendly relations. Okay. Official languages, World Day of Social Justice. Gender equality, climate change. World of economic situation and prospects. Growth that threatens sustainable development. UNESCO, World Health Organization. Okay. How many United Nations recognized countries does UN recognize? are Russian Federation. Member states. Oh, I'm thinking of NATO. Yeah, it's NATO that doesn't include everyone. Okay, there's 193 member states. State, our government. Application. Okay. List of member states: Algeria, Andorra, Chad. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so there's how many UN membership? What's this? South Sudan, Montenegro, Switzerland, Timor-Leste, Yugoslavia. Okay. Alright, so there's 193 United Nations. Okay. How many countries are there in the world? So, according to the way I think about countries, the way I think about countries is number. I would say countries can be hard to define, and so I use the United Nations member state number, member states as a proxy for what number of countries that exist on Earth. So there are currently 193 member states. At this here. So this is helpful. So there's 193 countries or states recognized by the United Nations. That's interesting. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Friday. Yeah, I could do Friday. Countries can be hard to define, so I use the Okay, so there's 193 member states, 193 countries in a row. Yeah, it's interesting to think about, so. Oh, yeah. So our world currently has around 8 billion people. Global population. Census.gov population. population and development. Census Bureau. International database. By 2060, I'll be 40 almost. No, wait, I'll be 60 actually. Yeah, a little bit less than 60, 58. Currently 22 right now. So, wow. And just about, 20 years from now, population might grow by that much. Okay, wow. That's 63 million. That's crazy. Infant mortality rates. So even in the past, they're probably making some projections, right? Because there's no way they can accurately guess. So this is using census. So these are some good resources for getting data. So, say data resources. So we have census.gov. We also have United Nations, World Bank Open Data. All right. So we have 8 billion people in the world, 193 member states, so 193 countries, and global GDP is around $100 trillion. If we divide 100 trillion by 8 billion, so let's try to estimate this. Let's say 10 billion. So how many billions go into a trillion? I think it's 1,000, right? So 110 billions go into a trillion. And then we have 100 trillion, so it'll be 100 times 100 is 10,000. Because we're rounding up, it would be maybe like 11,000, 12,000. So with that, I would say or estimate that the GDP per capita of everyone in this world is about $10,000. Which, honestly, I'm not too sure what to think about that, what that means. $10,000? Is that livable? I don't think so. I think GDP per capita in the US is maybe 50,000. I could be wrong. Okay, so let me think about this. There's probably 26 trillion in real GDP, maybe 21. Let's just say 20 to be conservative. 20 trillion in real GDP. There's about 300 million people. So let's say there's 300 million. There's let's say it's 3 times 300 million is going to be equal to a billion. And again, we have, 1,000 billions in a trillion. So I think we would have to say it's 1,000 times 3 is 3,000 times 26, or 1,000 times 26 is 26,000 times 3 is equal to 78,000. So 78,000's GDP per capita in the US, real GDP per capita, which honestly doesn't seem that bad, but I feel like maybe with inflation and how wealth is concentrated in the US, maybe GDP per capita isn't really a good measure of how wealthy people are. Yeah, just thoughts. Just thoughts. Okay. So let's take a look here. I like this. I'm like, it's interesting just to sit down and think about stuff without really having to do an assignment. I feel like I should be doing more of this because usually my free time I'm just watching TV, not really thinking about anything, but thinking about just random ass stuff it's a bit fun. Essential part of the economy. I think of a government as a collection of institutions. Right, so going back to how governments make money. Income tax. So I think within this includes corporate income tax. I think included in this is going to be, yeah, so income tax, and I'm including corporate income tax in here as well. But I think this is the idea of money that a government will keep as a percent of how much an individual makes, or business makes in income. And I think income can be difficult to define. And then you also have payroll tax. So these are so this is money that government will keep from people's paychecks whenever someone gets paid. Usually, whenever a salaried worker gets paid, a portion of that money goes to fund Social Security and Medicare. To fund, let's say, social, what do you call it? What do you call these programs? Fund social programs. So SS, Social Security, Medicare. Right? So we have payroll tax. Let's see. Actually, let's see if China, or if ChatGPT knows, how does China tax its people? Value-added tax system. Corporate income tax, business tax. Where can I find can I find information about China's tax system? Okay. Damn. Dude, ChatGPT is so fucking powerful. China's tax system, international tax handbooks, embassies of. Let's see. ChinaTax.gov. Does this have? Oh, nice. I have an English version too. About drafting tax laws, regulations, tax policy and legislation department, judiciary. Hainan's offshore duty-free policy. STA government's process. Policies. / index. Resource tax law. Tax system, maybe. Socialist market economy. Wow, yeah, that kind of goes. So this is kind of where economics class might have helped understanding how different types of economies work. In the US, I mean, do we have is it a free market economy? I don't know what these words mean, nor what they actually represent. I've heard of communist, socialism. I guess could you really describe an economy as communism or socialist economy, right? Free market economy. All right. From March 1st to June 30th, 2020, the first annual settlement of general income of individual income tax has progressed smoothly, making the establishment of a comprehensive and classified individual income tax system in China. Okay, what about, does the European Union have a website? European Union. Your gateway to the European Union. It was 14.5 trillion euros, which I think is less than 40% in China, the three largest global. United States share of trade. So I guess the European Union is also pretty big then. Source Eurostats. Estonia, Hungary. The European Central Bank. Okay. Let's take a look at this. The ECB. Thank you, European Parliament. About Here at the European Central Bank, we work to keep prices stable in the euro area. Okay, so I guess it makes sense because all of the countries that are part of the European Union do use euros as their form of currency, right? And I guess all of these countries don't even need a central bank. Alright. Does Germany have a central bank? Oh, have a central bank. Oh, I guess the European Central Bank has member banks. The Bundesbank, Deutsche Bundesbank, including the Deutsche Mark. Do countries in the EU have a central bank? Okay. So what countries are in the EU? Principles, yes, key facts and figures, structure. For the year 22, more of the EU, 27 member countries, in brief. Oh, they are euro is official currency of 20 EU countries, which is on the shaken here. Okay, so yeah, I've been to Denmark before, and I think they use krones instead of euros, so that's interesting. Kosovo. Switzerland is not part of the EU. Wow, okay. Netherlands, France, Belgium, Portugal. European Parliament. So 6 countries: Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands founded the European Coal and Steel Community. Okay. Its name has changed to European Union. Okay. All EU member countries in brief: Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, Czechia, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia. Okay, so I guess maybe when we talk about the biggest players, say EU, there's 27 member countries. So Russia, UK, I'm not too sure. What are the economic regions of the world? Okay. So the EU is big. I think so. Oh yeah, how many currencies are in the world? Biggest central banks. So I think we have important central banks, not biggest, but US Federal Reserve. Probably that's a big one. And then you have European Central Bank. So this is the ECB. Then you also have the Fed. How many currencies are there in the world? United Nations. How does Treasury? Effective dates. Afghani. Virgin Islands, USA, US dollar. Import to Excel. Let's see. How many countries are on this list? Should be 193, right? Should 37, right? I don't think it'd let me open. Yes. It's 200. Okay, that's weird. EC dollar. CFA franc. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of currencies here. Okay. According to the UN. Guess we could look at that here. Okay. So I do have class soon. I'm gonna probably end the stream here. So thanks for joining me on this journey of EconomicsMaxxing, day 1. And I think just to give an overview of what we learned about today, just thought about how money flows around the world, starting out with understanding kind of the basics of what an economy is, who participates in an economy, and I think some of the big players, institutions, governments, businesses, people, and also the geographic players, so the US, China, European Union, and then also a list of countries that exist in the world. So that's helpful to understanding how big the economy is, the world economy, also how many people actually live on Earth today, and also how big GDP is for the entire world. These are all interesting things to look at just to see how big the actual market or global economy is. And then this kind of can set the stage for thinking about what's going to happen in the future. But, this is very just scratching the surface. I've only just started at the very tippity top of the iceberg. And I think building a strong macro framework is probably going to take years, decades to come. So this is day 1. Hopefully, I'll be spending the next 10, 20, 30 or so years by the time I turn 50 and be somewhat of an expert in the space. So we'll see. Yeah, that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next stream. So, see you for now.